Welcome to our view. خوش آمدید به برنامه our view که یکی دیگر از سری برنامه‌های our view هست که من سوزی خاتمی تهیه کننده و مجری برنامه تقدیم حضور شما دوستداران این شو دارم همراه با دوست بسیار عزیز و نازنینم خانم دکتر فوژان زینی که کوهست برنامه هستن. لطف کردن که دعوت من رو به این برنامه الان چند هفته هست که پذیرفتن. من هم بسیار خوشبخت هستم که در خدمتشون هستم. خانم دکتر فوژان زینی خوشبختانه واقعا احتیاجی به معرفی زیادی ندارن اصلا. ایشون سایکوتراپیست هستن، اینترنشنال سپیکر، آثر کتاب و همچنین برنامه رادیویی در رادیوی آمریکایی یک LA تاک شو دارن که بسیار هم محبوب هست و من هم یکی از شنونده های پروپاگورس برنامه‌شون هستم. در حال خوشبخت هستیم که بار دیگر با شما در خدمت مهمونامون هستیم.
مرسی از شما. خیلی خوشحالم که دوباره در کنار شما هستیم. این برنامه رو در حقیقت شما جوری تهیه کردین و درخواست کردین و من خیلی دوست دارم که در کنار شما هر هفته که با هم گپ خودمونی در حقیقت بزنیم، نه تنها با خودمون دوتا بلکه با مهمانان عزیزی که هر کدوم واقعاً گوهر وجودشون و گوهر تجربیاتی که دارن رو برای ما و شما میارن و دوست داریم که یک گپمون کمی خودمونی تر باشه و همه ماها با همدیگه داریم صحبت میکنیم. چه فرق میکنه یه ذره با اینکه فقط داریم مصاحبه میکنیم؟ حالا با ما باشید و ببینید.
مرسی از توضیح بسیار خوبتون و امروز باید بگم که دو مهمان بسیار عزیز رو ما به استودیو دعوت کردیم، دو هنرمند گرامی که واقعا هنر نوازندگی گیتار هر دو این عزیزان در تمام جهان واقعا قابل تحسین هست. یکی از این دو هنرمند ایرانی آمریکایی هستند که باعث افتخار همه ما ایرانیان هستند. گیتاریست چیره دست گیتار فلامنکو آقای اردشیر فرح که در خدمتشون هستیم و همکار عزیزشون آقای هورهه استرانز که من سعادت این رو داشتم که در طول سالیان سال که با فعالیت‌های هنریشون آشنایی دارم و خوشحال هستم که از دوستانشون هم همینطور هستم، به جمله که فنشون هستم. این افتخار رو داشتم که در برنامه‌های متعدد گذشته در رادیو و تلویزیون همیشه باهاشون مصاحبه‌های متعددی داشتم، به خصوص وقتی که CD هاشون رو ریلیز میکنن. این بار هم باز به مناسبت ریلیز آخرین CD لیتست CD شون Tales of Two Guitars دعوت کردیم که به برنامه ملحق بشن که بسیار داغ هست. اصلا دست من سوخت. جدید این CD
تازه تنور در
اومده. اینی که دیگه صحبت رو کوتاه میکنیم، میریم و مهمانانمون رو به شما معرفی میکنیم. از این به بعد هم با زبان شیرین انگلیسی گفتگومون رو ادامه میدیم چون مهمانمون آقای هورهه استرانز هستن که به زبان انگلیسی صحبت میکنن. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Great to see you again, Susan.
Thank you for being our guest.
It's a joy to have you guys here.
Our pleasure.
Thank you.
Yes, this time is going to be a little different kind of an interview. Not only we're going to talk about your art, being an artist and your latest CD, but we're going to be kind of having a discussion, rather an informal one, and talk about the music industry, your experiences for the past so many years, which I'm sure you can tell us plenty.
Probably so. Too much.
The first question that came up for me is two people from completely two different backgrounds, two different cultures, and obviously maybe two different types of music. What got the two of you attracted to each other, into working with each other, and what part of this music becomes one in, from so much of the different aspects of the music and culture?
Well, I think the easiest answer is the guitar. The guitar makes it possible. The guitar is a very international instrument. It's an instrument that is found in all cultures, really, and anymore, even though it had its origins probably in Spain and beyond that, in the ancient Middle East, the stringed instruments with frets and so forth. So the guitar is a very popular instrument, and it's portable. It's completely chromatic, which means you can play in any key, any rhythms. You can strum it. You can play melodies. So it's a very universal instrument. I think that was the first thing that made it possible. That we were both guitar players and that we were both interested in a certain approach technically to the guitar, how to play certain scales, certain velocities. There was a technical approach that we had, that we shared. We admired some of the same guitar players when we were coming up, and then the music was something that evolved once we established our partnership as guitar players. We started composing music that made sense for the two guitars, and since Ardashir was a fan of Latin music as well as flamenco as I was, and I always enjoyed Middle Eastern sounds too. Flamenco has a lot of, we're not flamenco guitar players, but flamenco is kind of a meeting ground in a way for us. And flamenco has a lot of Middle Eastern background and influence, yes. So there's a combination there, and in a sense it comes full circle with us because it has the Spanish influence, the Middle Eastern influence, but at the same time it's international now that we met in California. And the music was born here. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the fact that Jorge, since you were born in Costa Rica, but having a father who was a diplomat,
That's
and
right.
you traveled a lot since you were quite young.
That's right.
And I think you kind of opened up to different cultures, background, ethnicity, and that really must have helped.
I think it did very much. Right. We lived in a number of different countries. I was raised. Like Ardashir, I was in England also for a number of years, younger than Ardashir's experience. I was 9, 10, 11, 12 when I was in England. I was partly raised in England, but also in Latin America, of course, and in Canada and the United States. So all these, I think, gave me a very multicultural view of the world, since I had to live in those places. It wasn't just visiting.
Right,
we were there for 2, 3, 4 years at a time. So you had to integrate into that society. Every time I went to school, I was always the new kid in school.
And how did that feel?
It felt a little like this.
Uncomfortable and uneasy.
At first, a little uncomfortable, of course, because you're always, everybody knows each other, and you're like, you don't know anyone, and so forth. But eventually, you sort of are able to integrate.
But that also helped to create this newness in the world of music, since you were usually the first one. Now
That's
together,
right.
you're also creating this innovative concept together.
That's right. That's right.
So how did Ardashir feel about all this and meeting with Jorge? We heard Jorge's part as far as
guitar became popular in Iran. I should say, from the emergence of the Beatles. When the Beatles became popular in Iran, then a big group of Iranian youth turned towards the instrument. Of course, there was classical guitar players before that. There were some flamenco guitar players that liked the guitar and played the guitar well and studied it before the Beatles. But in terms of a mass population, when the Beatles emerged, then the guitar became very popular. At the time, I was in my early teenagers. So we all went and got together with our friends and formed a little bands and started playing the Beatles music and other guitar music that came from the West. Groups like the Ventures, the Shadows, they played surf guitar. Later I realized, but so guitar music became popular since I was about 9 or 10 years old. And I went and bought my first electric guitar and started playing that kind of music. And the funny thing was, we ended up playing in a lot of the American clubs for the Americans that resided in Tehran at the time.
And they were quite
a lot.
A lot of
yes,
them
there was
back
a lot.
then. Right.
There was about 6 clubs for the Americans in Tehran alone.
I remember you also played in German club in Tehran.
That was
it
later.
called?
That was
Yeah.
that was when I went.
That's
to
when
England.
I was a teenager.
Right.
Me too.
Well, that was later. That was after I went to England and stayed in England for 2 years.
Right.
And when I back, then I mingled with some of the rock musicians in England, and I learned some rock tricks on rock guitar, and went back to Iran, and we formed a group and went to German club, which was a disco, a dance venue, with a band that we made. That we played rock music from, songs from the movie Woodstock, from Hendrix, from Jimi Hendrix, from other rock guitar players at the time. So that whole dance thing turned into a rock concert. And it was the 1971, it was the early 70s. The time was perfect for that kind of music that was very popular in the world.
A great era.
Wonderful era, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I was in London at the time, so I used to return every summer and join with a few friends and play at the German club, to the point that we were getting to 1,500-1,600 people to come. Of course, we were not playing original music. We were playing music from Jimi Hendrix, from British guitar players, from Jeff Beck, from all kinds of rock music.
And then little did you know that in 9 years after, 79, you would meet Jorge Strunz, and you both would form a...
I had no idea. When I came to LA in 1976, I discovered the club Roxy, which is an amazing
Still
club.
is there, right?
Still there.
Still there.
Back,
That's
back in
where
the
I met
day.
you about
For those who don't
1980s.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1980s. I think that's where the first time I saw you.
That's when we played at Roxy.
Yeah.
When Strunz Farah played at Roxy,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
Yeah, but that was an amazing club in the 70s. They used to have some of the biggest names in jazz fusion, which was the type of music that was very popular, coming up in mid to late 70s.
Right, yeah.
Early
70s all the way through, yeah.
And so I saw a lot of popular, what they called at the time jazz rock or fusion artists like Jean Duponty, and really fell in love with this club, the Roxy, because it was only 300 capacity. Small club where you could see big bands, big names. And then it happened that I was passing by Roxy one night, and I saw on the marquee said Freddie Hubbard, who's a famous American jazz trumpet player. And then underneath it said Caldera. Now, Caldera was Jorge's band at the time.
Right, right.
And they were signed to Capitol Records. They did 4 albums with Capitol Records. So I just decided,
I'm going to go in.
Yeah, just like buy tickets. The tickets at the Roxy were like $3 or $4 at the time. So there was me and 2 friends. We bought the tickets. We went in, and Caldera played, and I heard the most amazing fusion music that I've ever heard.
And the rest is history.
Well, the rest is interesting history, because I just saw him as a band that opened to a band Caldera, and the guitar playing was unbelievable. I never forget that night. And it happened that later we met by accident. One of my friends came from London and had Jorge's number through somebody that he was taking guitar lessons from in London.
Wow.
And this was like 3 years later, 1979. And my friend showed me his book and said, "These are some of the names and numbers in Los Angeles that my guitar teacher in England has given me." And Jorge Strunz's name was there. And I said,
Wow.
"Let's call this name. Forget about it. Let's call this name."
Wow.
That's right.
So we called Jorge that day, and he invited us over that afternoon. It was very nice of him to just say, come over today. And we went over.
He's just a nice person,
He's
actually.
a-
What can I say?
Most of the
It's
time.
very
Most of the
humble.
time, especially that evening.
Especially that day, yes.
But that was amazing that we went. Me and my friend went to Jorge's, and he was busy writing music for the last album.
The last Caldera record.
Fourth Caldera.
The fourth one, yeah.
Dreamer. But we sat and talked for about 2 hours, and
Wow.
2-3 hours just talked, and then we picked up the guitars and started just jamming. And I was very shy to play in front of him. I told my friend, don't tell him that I play guitar.
He had told me already.
You felt intimidated.
My God, that's
Already. But he was very relaxed. He picked up the guitar and he came and said, "I'm working on this piece." It was a Hungarian piece called Csárdas.
That's it.
And his relaxed attitude, his relaxed aura made me relax, because he played it. So I picked up another guitar, and we started like jamming on and
That's
harmonizing
so
this
cute.
piece that he was working on at the time. And
It's a very interesting process, because I know that each person, when they are going through a creativity process, something happens internally. And then I also get that when there's 2 people, there's an emergence of something that happens then in between, where not only you get creative, but you also pick up the other creativity that is around you, and it just takes you to another level of the same kind of creativity which emerges. Can you talk a little bit about your own experience when you create something alone, or you create something together as the jamming experience happens?
Well, yes, it's there's a synergy or chemistry, for lack of a better word, that can take place between musicians. In general, I mean, you can see, for example, you see a symphony orchestra. They don't have a metronome; they just have a conductor playing. And yet there's 80 people playing, and they look young, old, all sorts and shapes of sizes of humanity, and yet they play this amazing music together. Just looking at the charts, just reading, and then you close your eyes and you say, how is it possible? It's so beautiful what they're producing, And there's certainly a chemistry that goes on there on a writ large, you know, in a large ensemble like that, which is amazing. And the same thing can happen also, obviously, with smaller ensembles like a quartet or a duo, which we started out of as a duo, just the two guitars initially. So there has to be a certain, it doesn't always happen among musicians, obviously. They have to be on the same level in terms of understanding the music and skill, particularly skill. And so if that's in place, then you can go forward with some of these ideas that make the production of the music smooth and easy and fluid, so that you don't have to work hard at it. Because I'm sure that artists should have had the same experience. We've been in situations musically where it's very difficult to get anything to sound right. It's just because the musicians aren't quite there, so the chemistry or the synergy doesn't quite happen. Always. It has to be, you have to selectively choose your musicians and see how they work.
It's like communication that just at times it doesn't work, but when it works, there's a going, coming, and going and coming that just flows.
Yeah.
That's right.
And you have now played with so many other musicians in your every CDs that you came out with.
That's
you had number of other musicians, and I've noticed in every CD you had certain musicians that added a certain flavor. Like at some point you had a violinist, and then you had somebody else in the place of that violinist. So you change it, which is always nice and something different and a different flavor. How does that come about? Is it something, a feedback you get from your listeners, your fans, or is it something you just decide that?
It's mostly between the both of us. I think we decide to change the record.
That's right.
You have to change the music from one record to the other, you know, because otherwise you're predictable.
Right.
And people know, I've heard that sort of thing before. So they, in a sense, it becomes difficult for veteran artists like Ardeshir and I are. In other words, we've been together since 1980. That's a long time. So whenever we put out a CD, we're competing with ourselves, because we also have 20 other CDs that people have. So the question for the fan is, do I need this new CD by Strunz Farah? I like Strunz Farah, but I already have 18 CDs. So it becomes, you have to freshen it up.
So let's talk about the fact that after you got together and got to know each other and started working and started your albums, then it came the time that you actually had that album that you were a nominee for the Grammys, which was a big deal back then. Could you tell us about that now, and how did that?
Well, a lot happened before that.
Before that, I know, but I have to fast forward because of the timing. Because we're sitting back and very relaxed, and I don't want to be the end of the show and not.
Obviously, we're interested in Grammy.
Jorge originally was looking for another guitar player to do something like Strunz Farah, because with Caldera, it was all electric, keyboards, electric guitars, and fusion. So there's a lot of electronics involved. There's a lot of equipment involved, and he says that without roadies they couldn't even rehearse. They had to have help to bring amplifiers in, and he wanted to get away from that. So he was
production every time. Yeah,
he was looking for another guitar player to do something like Strunz Farah. He'd already been through
other players.
And then when we met, we
clicked.
Yeah,
it was easy. It was easy. It was not hard.
This was effortless.
Yeah, I mean, it's work, but the effort was not. In other words, you didn't have to beat it to death.
You didn't have to try it. It just just got going.
Yeah, you could see that you could do the work smoothly, and without having to sweat bullets about things that you shouldn't have to worry about. In other words, it was purely creative at that point.
Exactly. And he had already composed some music that we learned together, and I was working with Manouche Cheshmazer, an Iranian band, good band, at the time also. So I would take some of the music and practice it there and show it to Manouche Cheshmazer, and he would love the technique. So we developed a repertoire and recorded a demo of 2 tunes initially.
That's right.
We shopped it with the labels, American labels, and they liked the guitar playing, but the music was a little bit ahead of its time. It was what they call world music later. But in 1980, when we were shopping for a label deal, the music was a little bit ahead of its time.
It was a little exotic.
Exotic
for some people. Right. They thought. The one guy I remember told us, Jorge, the music is very nice, but you're giving us fine Italian shoes and we sell sneakers.
At least he was honest.
And at least he recognized. At least he could recognize it.
So we had to figure out how to do sneakers.
Exactly. Specialized item versus mainstream item.
Right.
So we're not It was exotic, not mainstream. So we went through this 4-year process of like putting out the first album ourselves. That album got on the jazz station in Los Angeles and became popular. They were playing 6 out of the 7 tracks of the album.
Wow.
And finally they zoomed on one of the tracks that they played every day several times. And through that we got signed to a reputable jazz label called Milestone Records, and did 2 records for them. And then after that, in late 80s, we changed our style of music to make it a little bit more mainstream, and got signed again to another label.
To
Mesa Blue Moon.
which was part of Capital EMI, right. So that was big. That was another big label that signed us.
Right. And the second album that we did for them was Americas, that we got nominated.
That's the one I talked about.
Right.
Yeah, Americas. Yeah.
We popularized the music by
Right.
basically using Latin American rumba rhythms primarily. So we went very deeply. I often thought of Ardashir as being a Middle Eastern musician in a Latin band, because all the musicians were Latin American basically, and Ardashir was the only one, besides maybe 1 or 2 guest musicians, who was not from Latin America. So the music was very much foundational on Afro-Latin rhythms. And at that point, when we did Primal Magic, which was the first record that really concentrated a lot on that, we were using resources that were already well known throughout the world as dance music. Cuban dance music was known since the 20s and 30s, so it was recognizable to people in terms of the rhythms, and we just put guitars on top of that, and which felt very natural to us, and it became our most popular record. Those 2 records, Americas and Primal Magic, became the most popular records.
And the timing was right, because the American radio, it was open to a little bit of diversity.
Well, they say timing is everything.
Timing was
And
right.
our timing is coming up to the time that we gotta go and
we want to listen.
have you, watch this music video by Strunz Farah, and we will be right back. Stay tuned. دوستان عزیز، امیدوارم که از این قسمت میوزیک ویدیویی که براتون از استرانز فرح پخش کردیم لذت برده باشید. یادآور میشم که CD جدیدشون که به تازگی ریلیز شده الان در خدمتشون به همین بهانه و مناسبت هستیم که نامش هست Tales of Two Guitars و حالا در مورد این CD و جدیدترین کارشون که الان دیگه اواسط گفتگو باشون رسیدیم صحبت خواهیم کرد که برامون تعریف کنن، ببینیم که چه برنامه‌هایی برای ریلیز این CD جدیدشون هم در پیش رو دارن. Thanks for being with us, and we will continue our conversation now that we had our viewers check out the music video. And I believe we have one more to show it to them before we end the show today. So we were talking about the nominees and then moving forward, other CDs that you have released since then. And I want to know about the music industry from your guys' perspective and opinion and being in this industry, because a lot of times that I've had the chance and the pleasure of interviewing you, I hear different things, how time has changed, especially now that the records is no longer there like it used to be, and now then CD came about, now the social media, how
live streaming,
that's right, has affected your music industry and financially and otherwise.
Oh, it's a long story, right?
Yeah, well, we have plenty of time.
It is a long We'll
story.
start with today, maybe. I mean, things have shifted very much in the industry from the old days when they, of course, we started when they were making LPs. There was the big
Yeah, I remember
those 33 and a third RPM LPs. Then they became later on CDs came into popularity, and we produced those in the early 90s. Is when we started making CDs, a little bit before that. Yeah. And then CDs started to going out of vogue or out of popularity in the 2005, 2000, right in that area. And now the most popular way of listening to music is streaming.
Right.
So streaming is the way people like to listen to music today, which is a very different thing from selling plastic, you know, which is what we used to do. And so we still make CDs, but like many musicians, they find that's a very reduced market now. It's the old-timers, people who maybe knew us from way back when, who are still buying maybe some of our CDs. They're available on Amazon, for example, and you can buy them there and so forth. But very few other places, I think, offer you CDs, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure of too many other places.
That's the main one.
That's the main one.
Yeah.
Right? Some people say there's some Barnes and Nobles here and there.
Maybe that, maybe a few bookstores.
Very few.
You know.
But
and that's
mainly
all
Amazon.
streaming.
Yeah.
So
And now
how did
stream-
that affect you guys?
Well, the income stream from that musicians make from recordings is obviously affected. Now it doesn't come from the distributor of CDs. Now primarily it comes from Pandora, Spotify,
Yes.
Right.
you know, Apple Music, based on how many streams people, how many times each piece is streamed. And so they send a check every month. You have no idea how much, whether it's true or not. I mean, there's no way to get into the.
There's no way to
weeds
catch
with
them
electronics.
now.
It's up to
There
them.
was never,
You have to trust
never
them.
was a way to catch it.
Never was a way.
You always
You are
have to
always at
trust.
their mercy.
That's very true, I'm afraid. Yeah, that's
You had to
right.
trust by force.
By force.
Well-
Now it's even worse than ever. But they do have streams, and
Right.
they send us checks, and that's where most of the music is being heard. We still make CDs, obviously. You see one there, but we make many less CDs today than
Right.
we used to make in the
Right.
in the heyday, like with Primal Magic and
Right.
Amazonas. We were selling almost 500,000 of each of those titles, and just in
I bet.
plastic.
That was our CD number 5 and 6, Primal Magic, and America's the one that was nominated
Right,
for the
right.
best world music album of the year.
Well, of course, when they come, when they come to see them in their concert, like I went to see them just last week, you could purchase them and have them
Right.
sign
That's
the
right.
CDs like the good old days.
Like the good old
and
days.
It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
I mean,
It
I
is.
do listen to music live stream too, but this is a different feeling.
It's a different
Like,
thing, yeah.
I see you guys, I see your signature.
Right.
It's all fun.
And you get all the
But-
credits too, of
Oh,
all the
yes.
other musicians.
That's
and,
right. That's
Right.
right.
And production credits.
And by the
everything
way,
else.
thank you for thanking me.
Oh, you're more than welcome. We remember our friends.
That was very nice.
I was going to
You
actually
know what?
ask, does the streaming support and help the concerts and having people to actually come get to know you because you are part of Baby Pandora's, they have their a whole
Sure.
selection and then suddenly they hear you and you're like, oh, I get interested, and then from there on.
They
most
do.
of us don't know all of the artists unless sometimes accidentally or somewhere
That's
and
true.
hear it, and then we enjoy it and then follow them. So that probably on that end might have
It
supported
definitely
you
helps.
in that
I
way,
mean,
right?
I mean,
Right.
it's almost the same thing as a CD in a sense. If people hear it and they stream it, then you're getting some income for it. In other words, there's some return for your work.
Well, with CD, they actually had to know you to go buy your CD. I'm
They
saying
have to know
that,
you, that's
right?
right.
But I'm saying in Pandora, sometimes I don't know everyone.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely. I see what
Pandora's
you're
on,
saying.
and I just keep
True.
You see a-
seeing.
a
I see
variety.
the name. I'm like, wow, I love that voice, or I love that music. Now I'm gonna actually get to know them and follow
Exactly.
them.
It's a
That's
great
it.
point.
Similar
yeah.
to old radio, I mean, FM
Right,
radio
exactly.
stations.
That's exactly right.
In the 90s, they would play us, I mean, our CD would come out, and it would go right on the wave in Los
Yeah.
Angeles, and similar radio stations in other cities. And people would hear it, and if the people that liked what they heard, they would pay attention to the name,
True.
and they would go and purchase the CD. That's what's happening with streaming
To a certain
to a
extent.
certain extent
yeah.
these days.
In streaming also, you have, for example, on Pandora and Spotify, you can have Strunz Farah radio. So
That's
you can
true.
select that and get most of our material all day long,
Right.
along with other things that sound, other artists that are related to what we do. So if you like that sound, and say as a listener and you had never heard it before, and you like the pieces that you heard from us, you could select presumably the Strunz Farah radio
Right.
channel
Right.
and hear more of that music and more of our music, in addition to other artists that sound that play nylon string guitar, for
That copy
example.
us.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
No, talking about copying you, who do you guys listen to in your spare
Who do we listen to in
I
terms of
often
guitar?
wondered, in terms of just music in general.
Well,
who would
my
you
goodness.
listen to?
In
If you have
guitar,
time, that is.
To get inspired, let's say, or
in guitar, I think in my case, I think probably artists to some degree too. I listen to the flamenco guitar play. I still love flamenco guitar, and so there's in Spain, which is where flamenco lives, of course, in Andalusia, southern Spain particularly. They have great guitar players, and it's still a tradition there. It's been a tradition for decades, if not centuries. So every time there's still young players who come up who are virtuoso players, who are excellent players, and so I like to stay abreast of who they are, and they're all on YouTube, so you can listen to them on YouTube and see what they're playing. Additionally, there's some people in Europe that in France there's some excellent players, young players, and so in terms of guitar, I listen to a lot of that. Other than guitar, though, I think most of my time I spend listening to classical music.
Classical.
Certain composers particularly. I like classical music in general, but I particularly like the Impressionists like Ravel, and Debussy. The early 20th century music is fantastic. Prokofiev. But those three are great. Stravinsky. Some of his things, early Stravinsky is particularly beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful music. And then in the older things, I like Bach and Beethoven. So those are my favorites, I think. But so I listen to them all the time, and I'm always amazed.
Which radio station do you listen to most?
KUSC.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
Which is
you?
classical music.
Well, I listen to Pandora a lot. Like you put on Paco de Lucia, and that's one way to get. They play Paco de Lucia. They also play other flamenco artists.
That's right.
And
Vicente Amigo.
Vicente Amigo, Pepe Abichuela, Gerardo Núñez, who's one of the very, very, very good flamenco guitar players from Spain, whose CD we've played on some
years ago.
Some
Yeah,
years ago.
Gerardo.
And YouTube, you put a name, one of those names on YouTube,
Right.
and then others show up on the side, and you discover like a lot of the new ones and some of the younger ones that you don't know, and that's one of the ways that you can get exposed to a lot of new guitar music.
YouTube is amazing, really, for the music.
Right.
I mean, you can get into all kinds of bifurcations and
Sure.
ramifications. Gypsy music.
Yes.
We like gypsy music. Gypsy music from Eastern Europe is fantastic.
Right.
Gypsy music from Spain, of course, which is the flamenco. Other things like that come up that are very, very intriguing. Musics of the different parts of the Middle East come up that you wouldn't know existed, except that YouTube has some
Yeah.
video you can
Yeah.
watch. Or,
Yeah.
That's
How do you
right.
excel yourself? What do you do? What goes internally inside of you to go from one level to your own next level?
It's an interesting question. I think it's got to be an internal fire. You know, it's a fascination that you have in our case for the guitar.
Right.
And if the guitar continues to fascinate, even though we started when we were children, it was fascinating then. And I have to say that at my age, at this point, it's still fascinating. I can't imagine how else I would spend my time. I would be, everything else pales in comparison in a way. You know, it makes me rather dull, I think. But
No, but
No, no.
it's very true. Like the most exciting thing is to come up with like I think to myself, okay, I'm going to do this line at a new tempo, and instead of 4 bars, I'm going to practice it in 6 bars or longer. And that just becomes very exciting. After all the years of playing, most exciting thing.
challenges.
Challenges,
Yeah.
exactly. And I record myself and I look at the faults and I say, no. Sometimes I go through process of like 3-4 hours of doing that.
I was just gonna say, how many hours a day do you guys play guitar? Is it like every day you play guitar, or are there days that you don't play
It
guitar?
varies.
during
Mostly
those?
every day you play, but it varies on what the job is coming up. For example,
Right.
we just played Catalina, right?
Right.
And we have some new music to prepare for Catalina, which with the first night, Friday, some of it came out like this, some of it came out good.
Everything was great.
But the first time it's
I
always
don't know about
a
but
shock, you know.
For us, everything was
Good.
thumbs up. So.
Good. We were hoping the
Thumbs
audience
up.
would notice certain things, but the first night is always a little bit walking on eggs, you know, for new material. The old material is you're confident and you know it very well.
Right.
Anytime you play a new piece the first time live, it's one thing to rehearse that piece at your house or at a rehearsal, and then it's a whole different feeling when you have that new piece and the people are there paying money to see you play,
Right.
and all of a sudden you get more nervous. There's more pressure on the performance
Interesting.
aspect of it. But yeah.
Yeah, plus the environment of the stage is completely different than
Absolutely.
the room that you rehearse in.
True.
You know, we usually rehearse at Jorge's studio.
Right.
Well, it's a nice room, the 2 of us or the 4 of us, 5 of us. All musicians get together, we sit there, play the music, and then when you go on stage, first of all, the sound system is different.
Right.
Everything's different, so the environment changes.
Sound is different.
And then when the people show up, then it's really different. Now, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
now you have to rehearse that.
That's
What's
it.
playing in front
interesting-
of the people.
As you were talking, I figured, you know, in this type of a surrounding or other types, when we fumble and don't do something right, it's an individual concept that I'll try to correct it.
Absolutely.
You know, or I'll just say, you know, oh, excuse me,
Right.
and then I shift, and then
Right.
maybe like she will follow me with that. And then I thought, if one of you has an accident or a mishap or misses a tune or something, how do you fumble through this and come back in
Well-
this whole synergetic
Well,
concept?
that's why there's 2 of us.
That's a good one.
Plus there's
one
another...
makes the mistake, the other one covers.
That's right. That helps, actually. And there's another concept, which is that you try to get... This philosophy is important because there's no such thing as a perfect performance.
Right.
You know, there's always going to be some mistake or another. It's like speaking, too. There's a word that may not come out or something like that. So the music is the same way, in a way. So, but what you have to learn how to do, and this is something that Chick Corea, the great pianist, had always advised. He says, I don't make mistakes. I leave holes. So if you're not sure of something, play nothing. You know, just leave it open. The rhythm section is still playing and everything. It's better than putting the wrong note.
Right.
Everybody will remember that, but the fact that you left something out or they're not sure, you know, it's the safest thing to do. So you have to become expert at leaving, if you know you're going to make a mistake, because you can sometimes feel it right before you're going to do it, that, what, is this position right, or something distracts you.
Right.
And then, so rather than take a chance on playing the wrong notes, which is so easy to do, you play nothing. This is not for long. It's usually, we're talking about 2 or 3 or 4 notes.
Yeah.
Right.
But
That
you
was
leave that hole,
interesting.
usually he doesn't have the same mistake, so you play the 4 notes.
And then you have silence.
That's right. This is why we
Well,
do
as far
it.
as audience, we probably think the silence was part of
That's
Yakimented.
the idea, that's the idea.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
The audience thinks silence is part of the music,
Right.
rather than what, you know, whereas a wrong note sticks out.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a sore song.
But it's interesting to say also that what you said is that I know that I'm going to make a mistake, and I'm sensing that when you're in the zone, it just feels like you're in the zone. But right when you come out of the zone, you're the first one who knows that you're out, and that's when mistakes could happen.
That's exactly right, yeah.
That's right.
And you can get it in and out of the zone, unless the show is so well rehearsed. I mean, the people who have, in a sense, consecrated their lives to the stage, which is something that Ardeshir and I have done for a period of time, but we're not, there are certain performing artists who are road hogs. I mean, they live on the road, performing. And they have, luckily they have the work offers and the money to be able to do that. And so they can execute practically perfect shows because they are always living on stage.
Right.
In our case, you know, we've had a career that has its natural ups and downs, and so that when you play less, because we don't accept just anything anymore, it has to be worthwhile and so forth. That may mean that there's a month before, or 6 weeks before since the last time you played. So that 6 weeks is like 6 weeks that you're not playing in front of an audience. So
Makes
that
a big difference.
It makes a difference.
Just like
Whereas if you've been
anything
playing
else.
that whole time, you'd be at home,
Yeah.
completely at home.
Exactly.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're enjoying this conversation with you guys, and once again, before the show ends, I'd like to remind everyone of the latest CD, Strunz Farah, called Tales of Two Guitars. And I know you're traveling because of this.
That's right.
Yeah. So where are you going? Where are you off to?
Next week we're going to Texas.
Okay. Whereabouts?
We start in Dallas, then to
Okay.
Houston, and then we go to Austin. Those
Wow,
3 shows.
nice.
Then we'll come back and do some shows in California,
Whereabouts?
South Bay,
Hermosa Beach.
Hermosa Beach,
Okay.
And San Juan Capistrano.
and San Juan Capistrano. Hermosa
Oh,
Beach
that's
on
a nice
Sunday
place.
That's very nice,
the
yeah.
16th, and San Juan Capistrano on Sunday the 23rd.
And then we go to the Bay Area to play
September.
in Berkeley.
Beautiful.
Right, in November.
Beautiful. So you're all set up for the California and Texas for the time being.
Right.
And what about East Coast? Any
East Coast, the
plan?
agency is working for December, which is always a little scary for me because December is when the bad weather starts
Exactly,
happening on the
exactly.
East Coast. I always try to tell the agent, please, nothing in January.
Right.
You know, but
it's a bit cold and snow.
Yeah,
and
we have to drive from city to city.
we've been there and
That's
done that
right.
many times, and it's
Best
hard.
time is fall and spring, right? For the
Absolutely,
East
yeah.
Coast.
Or the summer is nice too,
Or
actually.
summer,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, thank
We're
you
gonna
so
listen.
much. And
Are we
I
listening
think
to another
before-
one?
Yes, before the show ends, I'd like to invite our viewers to check out one more music video, Strunz Farah, and then we'll come back and say our goodbye to you. Believe it or not برنامه ما وقتش به پایان رسید. خیلی متشکرم از مهمونامون، متشکرم از شما عزیزان که با ما همراه بودید. در ضمن یادآور میشم که برنامه‌ها رو میتونید از طریق andishetv.com ببینید. ضمناً اگر رو فیسبوک سوزی خاتمی هم تشریف ببرید، من بعداً برنامه‌ها رو اونجا میذارم، میتونید شیر کنید، ببینید هر موقع که دوست داشته باشید. و اگر برنامه‌ها موزیک‌ها اجازه بدن روی یوتیوب هم رو کانال سوزی خاتمی هم میتونید سری بزنید. و اما thank you so much for being with us today in a different format of a show. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed it very much.
It was a pleasure seeing you again, and hope to see you guys on tour wherever San Juan Capistrano. I could probably see you there.
Dr. Zain is hoping to catch you there.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Yeah, please let us know.
Let us know.
I would love to see you.
Lovely having you, Poojan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you بیننده های خوب و عزیز. تا هفته دیگر و برنامه دیگر همه شما عزیزان رو به خدای بزرگ میسپارم. Stay well and drive safely. Thanks again.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Wonderful.